That's true. She's wishing people. Yeah. I'll send you. I'm sure it's probably in conference. Well, I'm there. But I will check.
As far as I know.
Alright, everybody, go ahead and start the meeting here at 7:19. So we got a pretty light agenda for the evening. The first thing that we've got for it is our presentation on student health insurance with Dr. Ted Grace and Student Health Center, Student Health Services with Don Howard. I think I've done that about as bad as I can. So first thing I need to ask for was an adoption of the agenda and approval of the previous meeting's minutes. If I can get a motion to such saying. Second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or any opposed, same sign. Seeing none opposed, motion passes. All right, with that, I will turn it over for our presentation this evening. We have a handout for tonight. I put some of our extra copies on the table. If you need a copy, you can raise your hand and I'll bring you one. There it is.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Grace. I'm Director of the Student Health Center. This is Don Howard. He's our coordinator for insurance services. We're going to keep this really informal. You can stop us anytime and ask questions. I made a little handout. It's two-sided. If you look at the side that has the Student Health Services at the top of it, it just tells you a little bit about the Student Health Center. I hope you all have found us. We're easy to find. We're across Grand Avenue from the towers or hooked right onto the rec center. We aren't just a medical facility. We have the counseling service there. We have wellness and health promotion services. We've moved disability student services in there this year. We have Marion Eye Center in there. We have a physical therapy and then all the ancillary services, lab, x-ray, pharmacy. So we hope you have found it. Something that's become very popular this year. Our wellness center opened a dog lounge, and students come in there all the time for stress reduction. We have everything from some kind of water therapy room to biofeedback to we're getting a second massage chair. It's so popular. There are dogs there 3 half days a week for pet therapy. So a lot of students, it's surprising. We get about 30 students that'll come just for one dog that they've grown fond of and like to come in and just kind of chill out in there. I like to remind students there are 2 health fees at this university. The first one is the student health fee. That's a condition of enrollment. You do not get that one back. That one pays for all the services at the student health service. Inside the facility, I like to say, most of the services within that facility. There is a $10 copay, just like, you know, when you go to a doctor on the outside, there's usually some kind of a copay. There's a $10 copay. The student insurance fee, which is $875 a semester, you can waive out of. It's mandatory you have insurance. It's not mandatory you have this plan. So if you have something else, you can waive out of it. If you waived out of it fall semester, you do not have to waive out of spring semester, but you have to remember to do it again next fall. The deadline, first of all, you can't waive out until 6 weeks before classes begin. And then the deadline is always the second Friday of fall and spring semesters, first Friday of summer semester. What I like to remind students that the biggest myth on this campus is you do not have to have the student health insurance plan to use the health center. Why? Because that's paid for by a separate fee that you have all paid called the student health fee. So you've paid for it. You'll hear a lot of myth around campus. We can't go to the health center. We don't have the student health insurance plan. It has nothing to do with that. They're separate. The insurance pays for things outside the health center, like ambulances, hospitalization, going to specialists, things like that. I put the frequently asked questions about the plan. There's a great website that Gallagher hosts that I underline called www.gallagherstudent.com there, frequently asked questions. There's a lot more than these 7, but these are the primary 7 that students ask the most. And I want to point out number 6, if you're having enrollment or waiver problems, you call Gallagher, which is our insurance broker. If you have benefits or claims, you call United, which is our carrier. And if you just have problems that you can't get resolved, you call Don here, and his number's listed there. Believe me, there were a lot of students that needed help this year. The reason is, every year at the end of the year, we get a quote on what our new premium is going to be for the following year. And I usually bring it to the graduate council and to the undergraduate student group and share it with you and get a yay or nay if you're willing to support it before it goes to the board. What happened this year is because of our falling enrollment in our insurance plan, partially related to falling enrollment at the university, and skyrocketing claims, meaning we just had so many students with big claims against the plan last year, and it included athletics, so we had a lot of football claims last year. We had so many claims and falling enrollment that the insurance company, Aetna, lost a lot of money on our plan, and they came back with a rate that we couldn't tolerate. I mean, it just was unaffordable. We knew students wouldn't be buying it. We actually considered doing away with an insurance plan for a while, but luckily we have an insurance broker, Gallagher, who has our contract, and they are allowed to go out to bid any year to another carrier. So they went out to bid, they tested the waters with Blue Cross Blue Shield, they didn't want to bid on it, and so United stepped in with a bid that we found acceptable. But they did this very late in the year. In fact, you had all finished your spring semester and gone home. This wasn't approved until like in the July board meeting or something like that in mid-summer. That is how late we got the bid and applied it. So you can imagine the problems that happen when you've been referred to a provider and you have a card from Aetna and suddenly you become United. All of a sudden you needed new referrals, and some of the people that were in network for Aetna were not in network for United. So it was a bit of a headache for Don's office. We had a lot of calls. We tried to guide a lot of students through. We sent out a lot of emails. We posted the information as we got it on our website. We apologize that we couldn't get enough information to you fast enough, but we really did the best we could. There were a lot of students come over and had us hand walk them through claims and various things. And so I know that's where a number of your questions come from. Don now is going to talk a little bit about if you turn your sheet over to the, tells the plan year, compares last plan year with this plan year. He's going to tell you we had to make some changes in the plan again to get the cost down so that it was in a level that we felt acceptable to our students. So he's going to tell you the changes. Then he's going to answer the 6 questions that you sent us that you specifically had, but then that'll open up more questions we'd be happy to try and answer for you. And you'll see at the bottom of that page, there's a number of contacts if you need to reach us at the health center for anything. So here's Don Howard to tell you about the new plan.
Hello, like you said, I'm the coordinator of the Student Health Insurance Plan. I just want you to know for sure that there's more than just me. There's 3 different entities that we have to work with. You mentioned our broker, which is Gallagher. They handle all of our enrollment issues. Okay, so I work closely with Gallagher for folks that are having enrollment issues. There's also the carrier, which is now United. Gallagher has to communicate to United. I have to communicate to both of those. So a lot of my job is just trying to coordinate those three entities, SIU, Gallagher, and United now. Okay, so that's kind of my role. I want to talk about the plan changes. First of all, our plan is and has always been what's called a PPO. That's a preferred provider organization. So that means there's networks. Okay, if you stay within the preferred provider network, you pay less out of pocket. Okay, if you go outside of that network, the insurance will still pay, but less. You'll have to pay more of your healthcare costs. Okay, is that something that you already knew? Probably, maybe. That's why when you look at these benefits here, there's going to be two some places. They'll say in-network and out-of-network. Okay, that means if you go and see a preferred provider, that's the benefit. If you go outside of that provider network, that's the other benefit. Okay, so the first thing is the premium. Of course, that's the amount you pay just to have insurance. Okay, just to hold the plan, it costs the university $912 for every plan. Okay, that's an increase from Aetna, but as Dr. Grace mentioned, what Aetna wanted to increase our rate to was far beyond this. Okay, and then we also got the annual breakdown. If you get it for the fall and the spring, it's $1824. That next number is how much the Student Health Center contributes to help pay for your premium. We contribute $37 to every premium that's purchased on campus. That doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you talk about 3,500 students and we pay $37 for each one of those in the fall and in the spring, it adds up. And that money comes from a reserve that we have from when we were self-insured about 5 years ago. So we have a pool of money that we can't use for anything else, and we're trying to use it to help decrease the cost for our students. Okay, so that's what that $37 is there. We got the $875, that's how much the students will pay after we've subsidized it with that $37. We put the annual premium on there just so you can see, if you take that annual premium and divide it by 12, it costs $146 a month. So that's pretty reasonable compared to some other plans. It's not as good as others. Obviously, if you're on a parent's plan or something like that, it might be cheaper. But to go out to the marketplace or to try to get insurance on your own, it's usually a better deal to be with the campus plan. There's the amount for summer term only. If you're in the plan in the spring, you're already covered for summer. Okay, but some students actually begin their career at SIU in the summertime. So if you start in the summer, you would get just a summer only fee. Does that make sense? The next thing on there is the deductible. Remember, the deductible is the amount that you're responsible for before the insurance is going to pay anything. Okay, so it's $400, so you have to pay $400 before the insurance plan will pay any part of your claim. And that went up a little bit from last year, but again, it's because our claims are so high with our students, we have to spread that out a little bit. So that was one way we did it, was by increasing the deductible to help keep the premium down. The next one is the out-of-pocket maximum. Okay, that means if you have to spend that amount, $7,900, if you spend that amount out of your own pocket, the insurance will pay everything else for the rest of the year. So most of you will probably never get to that. But if you have to be hospitalized or if you have a major medical condition, you could reach that pretty quickly. Yes, ma'am?
Is that for a calendar year or for a semester?
Great question. Did you hear what she said? Is it for a calendar year or for a semester? It's actually for the plan year, which would be starting August 15th all the way through August 14th of the following year. Okay. But if you start in the spring, you still have to meet that. Or if you start in the summer, you still have to meet that, because the plan year is going to start all over in the fall, and it's going to start over at the top. Did that answer that?
Yes.
All right. Pharmacy copays, I'm sorry, I haven't been saying the out-of-network benefits, but you see them there. I talked about the $400 deductible. If you go out-of-network, it's $700. So really, you have two deductibles. Okay, if you go and see a provider that's out-of-network, you're on this, you have to meet $700. If you go see another provider that's in-network, you have to meet the $400. So it's actually two deductibles. Okay, so you want to try to stay in-network, you want to try to stick to just having to pay that $400. Same thing with maximum out-of-pocket. The maximum out of pocket goes up. You have to pay more out of pocket before the insurance is going to pay 100% if you go and use out of network providers. Okay, with the pharmacy, the copays are $15, $40, and $75. And those are tiers of drugs. So the $15 is for generic type drugs. The $40 is for the preferred brand drugs, and then the $75 are for non-preferred. Okay, and if you use our pharmacy on campus, we only have the 2 tiers. So if you have a non-preferred item and you get it on at our pharmacy, you would only have to pay the $40 and not the $75. Does that make sense? If you go off campus and you get a non-preferred item, you're going to have to pay that $75 copay. But if you do it on campus, we don't have that tier. We just use the $40 one. That's a benefit for using our pharmacy. Okay. Office visit copay, that's just the amount you have to pay if you see an office visit off campus. So if you go see a provider off campus, you have to pay $25. Okay, that goes towards your deductible. And it's not different if it's in network or out of network. It's still just $25 for that copayment. Okay. There's also an ER copayment. So if you go to the ER, you have to have a $250 copayment. But if you're admitted into the emergency room or to the hospital, that $250 copay is waived. We used to have intercollegiate athletes on our plan, as Dr. Grace talked about just a little bit. They've chosen to not be in our plan anymore. They have their own plan. So we took off that benefit. So now we don't cover intercollegiate sports. So that shouldn't affect anybody as long as you're not in intercollegiate sports. If you're not an SIU athlete here, it does not affect you. Those SIU athletes, they have their own plan that specifically covers those problems. Okay, so they're not on our plan anymore, so we're hoping that's going to be a cost savings for us as well.
You're still covered for club sports, intramural sports, any other sports you do,
Right.
just so it's not in it.
We used to have a 3-month continuation plan with Aetna. United does not write that into their plan, so we're not able to provide that service for you anymore. That's a major change. We're still ACA compliant, and the metal level of the plan is still gold. The best is platinum. When we first started out, the first year that we went with Aetna, we were at platinum level. Because there's more cost sharing now because of the increased claims, it reduced our metallic level down to a gold. There's something else that I want to talk to you about to make sure you realize there is a referral requirement from the Student Health Center if you see someone off campus. Okay, so if you decide to go see a physician that's off campus, you need to get a referral from the Student Health Center. Okay, but there's exceptions. So for example, if you're back home, if you're not from the Carbondale area and you're back in your home city, if you're more than 50 miles away from Carbondale, you do not need this referral. If we're closed, for example, if it's a weekend or if it's a holiday and the Student Health Center is not open and you need to seek services somewhere else, that referral is also waived. There's certain services that does not require the referral as well. For example, OBGYN services don't require the referral. Emergency room services don't require the referral. So that's available on our website that lists all those exceptions to the referral requirement. Okay. So if you come to SIU Student Health Center and we refer you off campus, you're golden, you've met the referral requirement. Okay, but if you choose just to go see a provider without going through the Student Health Service, you're in Carbondale, it's during our hours of operations, you will be held to that referral requirement. And what it'll do is it'll reduce your benefits to 50% of what they would have paid. Okay, so they'll still pay something, but it'll be a more out-of-pocket cost for you. Yes, ma'am.
So if we were previously going somewhere for Retina, continued to go there, and then have not gotten a referral, what do we need to do? If it's just going to be paying 50% now, what can we do?
What can you do because you didn't do the referral?
Yeah.
Repeat the question.
Yes, she wants to know if she was previously seeing a provider and she had the referral,
Yeah.
right? But now that we've changed plans, she didn't get the referral, a new referral, and so she wants to know what to do for that. The Aetna referral was only good from plan year to plan year in the first place, so even if we wouldn't have changed plans, you would still be in the same boat you are because you still would have needed to get the new referral. Does that make sense? That doesn't tell you what to do about it, but I mean, it's not an issue of us changing carriers. The referrals are always good from plan year to plan year. So, for example, if somebody comes in on August 1st and they get referred out somewhere with the referral, that's only good till the end of the plan year, which is August 14th. That referral is only good for 14 days, and then you get a new one.
Okay, so in terms of bills that have only been paid up to 50%, do we just need to call United Healthcare and try to sort out with them, or?
Why don't you call me personally? I might be able to help you because you've probably been to the student health center, right?
Mine was like pregnancy. I was pregnant before we were on it, still am now, and I'm just wondering if I continue to go to the same OB.
And because it's that medical issue, there shouldn't even be a referral requirement.
Okay.
Let's talk about this
Okay,
personally
that sounds
instead of in front of the group. Okay?
Got it.
You got my information on this sheet, okay? Make sure you call me, and I'll be happy to talk to you. I can help you. I know I can. I'm sorry. The referral requirement is where I was. Are there any other questions on that referral requirement? I just wanted to make sure I put that out there tonight.
So it's basically any specialist that you would go see outside of campus.
Yeah, absolutely. It's even primary care though. I mean, if you decide that there's a doctor in town that you just
That you would
that you
rather
like,
see.
it's not to say you can't do it, but you need to come to us. We'll give you the referral, and we would rather you come to the student health service for services that we can provide, but we can certainly send you out somewhere if we need to, and specialty care for sure. Yeah. And again, there's exceptions, so please go to the Student Health Center website, check out that referral requirement. All the exceptions are listed for that. And I wanted to briefly go over these bullet points that we received. I think I can answer some of these questions for you, but I'm not sure I understand them all. So let me tell you what I have here. The first one says there's a gap of delay, problems in access to care related to obtaining policy number for new provider and policy. I think I understand this one. Every year, and this again is not because we change providers, this happens every year. Because of the waiver, there's 3 weeks of every semester that we don't know if people are going to take the insurance or not, right? They have to tell us if they're going to waive it or if they're not going to waive it. So during those first 3 weeks, you have to make a choice. You have to go in and either waive the insurance or you have to go in and enroll in the insurance. Okay, after the first 3 weeks, we enroll everybody that hasn't waived it. And I think there's a misconception just because you've been charged the insurance fee that you're enrolled into the insurance plan. And that's not true until the 3rd week of classes. That's when we enroll everybody. But if you get stuck in that middle where you're trying to seek services, for example, in a community pharmacy, for example, and you haven't told us that you wanted to keep the insurance plan, and it's during that first 3 weeks, you won't be able to prove that you have insurance because you won't be able to access your insurance card. Okay? So during the first 3 weeks, there is that kind of what that issue was? Did any of you all have this specific problem?
I think, so the specifics for this year, the issue was for even those returning students, since we transitioned with a new provider, and not only was it the carryover of that, there was a confusion where which plan do you use, how do you get care with, which plan do you obtain that care, which one do you use, because we were going from that Aetna plan to the new United plan, and even though there's that 3-week lag for incoming students that already had the previous year's policy, but then we're shifting it to the new one.
It's all students every semester. It's not only returning students, because unfortunately in the college population, people that were here in the fall might not be here in the spring because they graduate, they get a job and decide to not be in school anymore. They have medical problems, personal problems, they drop out. So it's all students have to either waive or enroll. You only have to waive one time a year, but you have to enroll each term that you want it. Okay, we'll automatically enroll you after 3 weeks, but still people can waive in the spring. Even if you had it in the fall, in the spring you still have the option to waive it. So we don't know if people are going to waive it or if they're going to keep it, even if they're in the plan in the fall. So yes, ma'am.
So I think I'm one of these people. This is one I described to you, I think. So I did enroll during the summer, before this 3 week, because I see a specialist because I had a surgery over the summer.
Okay.
And so I had enrolled over the summer, and then in someone had told me that I was enrolled and everything was set. And so I had to follow up with my specialist like August like 23rd or something. So it was like right after we had switched to like the August 15th. And I was told like go online on August 15th and you can like get your card. But then I went on and it said like I wasn't enrolled, and it also said like that I wasn't even like insured basically. So I was on the phone with like Gallagher and United for like 3 weeks every day for like a half hour.
Did you call me at all?
No, because I had called someone in your office and they were like, well, we have it that you've enrolled. So we've sent that information to Gallagher. So you have to talk to Gallagher. That's what I was told. So I was on the phone with Gallagher literally every day. I mean, I've spent hours on the phone with them. To the point where they said, oh, we'll get you urgently put in. Urgent ended up being like 10 business days, and they said it was supposed to be 2. And like I had to go to the specialist, and they basically enrolled me in self-pay, and it was like $1,000 for my visit. And they said, well, if you come up with your card in like 30 days, then you don't have to pay it. But if you don't, you're on self-pay now. So like I was one of those people, I didn't have a card. And I literally called over and over again until finally like it was literally almost like the 30-day mark where I would have had to pay the bill. And they finally came up with a card for me.
I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah.
But you know, there are some things that could have potentially happened. I know that some people will try to enroll or waive, and they're not registered for classes.
I was registered.
So that
Yeah, I
was
was
you.
registered. I enrolled. I had called like the office, like your office, and they're like, "Yep, we have you as enrolled." Like they said, everything was legit on the SIU side, and they had sent it to Gallagher, and then I just had to keep on with them. So, and I did literally like every day. And
Please call me next time if you have any troubles like this. My front staff are not really insurance people. They've been trained, and I've told them to say specific things. But if you call and you're just not getting anywhere, please call me, because I know these people personally at Gallagher, and I can pick up the phone and probably get an answer for you right away. You're talking to a customer service rep that probably doesn't know much about it.
Real good time.
I'm sorry that happened to you. That's hopefully an exception. I hope that doesn't happen.
My office mate did the same thing. She injured her knee over the summer, and she had to go to urgent care, and they wouldn't like. They told her the same thing, self-pay. So she was on the phone. We were literally on the phone sometimes at the same time, like trying to see like our wait times to see if they were going to be the same, and if people could help us, and if they said something to her, would that help me? So like we literally were on the phone at the same time.
But you said she was injured in the summer. Our plan doesn't start until August 15th.
That's summer speak, I guess.
Oh, okay.
It was in that August time period. Yeah, like it was after the same thing. It was after August 15th.
Tell your sweet mate to call me.
Okay.
If she has that.
I will. She and I had a very similar. Yeah, she had to go and vote a lot of money as well.
Tell them kind of the trick where they can get their card 3 weeks early. Like,
That's I've heard a lot of trouble with that too.
Yeah, it's
having access to the
it's
card.
hard.
Even when we receive emails saying that we are now enrolled, but like there's a delay in that. And so I've had someone complain to me that even accessing the card so that they can go and see someone was very difficult. And so lots of different layers of that. And then I did have someone who also complained to me, and maybe this is also within that window of time, where there was that uncertainty, that he said he had to pay twice for pretty much he was double billed, once by Aetna and then also by United or something, right? So he didn't know how to, he tried contacting and calling to get one of them removed or whatnot, and then both wouldn't, because it was, I don't know if it was that kind of, that weird space at the in-between and transition, but he didn't, but it was a really high, very high charge, something that he did not expect based on previous service. He's one that's pretty familiar with this health system and has been having continued difficulty.
I would like to hear more about that, because Aetna doesn't have the capacity to bill you through the student registration. I mean, they can't put a bill on your account. Aetna can only bill you if you apply for dependents. Was that an issue? Was it?
It may have, because he does have a son. So it may have been one of those things where it may actually have had applied to his dependent, and not necessarily directly towards him, but he did see a double billing from both Aetna and United.
I hope he got that corrected, and if he did,
I don't think he has, and so
please have him contact me.
so I might have to just contact you directly.
Absolutely, yeah. The dependents, we don't do dependents at all, so dependents are handled through Gallagher, and I can't do the application for you, but I can certainly show you where the application is. If you're having issues with it or questions with it, I can get you to the right person. So I can connect you to the right people. I can't force things through, obviously, but they like our business. So when I tell them something, there's a problem, they try to fix it. But I sure, I had to know about it to know. I may have, that sounds vaguely familiar. I might have spoken to the person that you're.
Thanks, William, or Bill.
It's not familiar.
Maybe after more than this.
It could have been. I know we had some problems with some dependent enrollments. That's, the paperwork has been difficult, but it's not spelled out very clearly, I'll say that. So that was that gap, and you said a secret way of getting, the best way to do it is that active enrollment is what we're talking about. And it sounds like you did that.
I did, like, literally said I did everything the way I was supposed to, but it was really fun.
It's not automatic is what I want you to see. When you fill out that enrollment form, that goes to our broker, but our broker doesn't have access to student information, so they can't tell if you're registered for classes or not. They have to call me, and I have to check and make sure you got the insurance fee, and I say yes, she's an eligible student, and they pass it on to the carrier, and then that's when you're loaded. So it takes about 3 to 5 days is what it's supposed to, but yours took much longer than that.
Yeah, it took definitely more than that.
Yeah.
In the switch from Aetna, is Gallagher kind of a new, like, is it to us, or have we used Gallagher in the past?
Gallagher's been in charge of our enrollment since the beginning.
Okay.
They handle our enrollment and our waivers since we started.
Because I know, I mean, thinking of the new situation, others, I know that people have expressed like a delay in communication because of that third-party broker and having to communicate through them, and then, and as you mentioned, and then to United, then back and back.
It does add an extra layer. I certainly agree with that, but they're so important to us. You would not believe what our insurance premium would have been if it wouldn't have been for them. So they're invaluable to us from that standpoint, but it does add a layer.
Oh, no, but I was just curious, and that's why I was curious if this has always been there, or if it was something new with the transition.
No.
Because that might help explain to people, if they're seeing different delays than they had experienced in the past.
Yep, it's the same process, just a different carrier. Yep. So I have some other bullet points. Copay confusion during an office visit, under which policy is billed by office. So if you're under the Aetna plan, it was billed by Aetna all the way through August 14th. And then after that, when the new plan started on August 15th, it was United.
I had that too. That's on my other group, but someone called, like, Aetna called me because I saw a specialist on like the first week, I think, of the same specialist, like I've seen him a lot. And they called me to say that it was like I had 2 insurances, and I had to explain to them that I only had one, and then I had to show them like the United one, so they could like verify the dates. So I think that I don't know if that was mine too, but that was something that happened to me as well. Because Aetna called and said, well, we're not gonna pay for this because you have another insurance. And I was like, no, I actually don't until X day, and this was before that. Like they made me like prove it. I don't know, maybe I'm just like an anomaly.
No. I'm just wondering if the provider might have continued to bill Aetna, even after you were covered, if you were covered under, and they just never asked for a new insurance card, and you didn't have one to give them anyway.
Right, I did. That's the thing. I'm trying to remember who called me first. I don't think Aetna called me first. I think the doctor's office called me first to say like, Aetna saying that you have another insurance, and so we can't bill them or something like that.
Yeah. So as of August 14th, it would have been true. So anything after August 14th, you would have.
But it was before that though.
Then you wouldn't have.
Yeah. I don't know, but I got that call anyway, so.
Okay.
I don't know, I don't, like I said, maybe I'm an anomaly, I don't know.
No.
No, you're like, no. I know that other people have similar ones, so.
I get calls all day long. So insurance is hard, right? It's frustrating, it's hard, it's confusing. So I can try to help. It's the best I can do. I know it's not perfect. Does that kind of answer the copay? We talked about what copays were.
A little bit. I mean, he's not here, so I, go back to the details. But I think I'll just have, because he has been fairly frustrated. So
He can even come in and talk to me.
Yeah, I'll have to talk.
Tell him to call first, because I'm in and out of my office. I hate for him to come over to see me and I'm not available, but we can make an appointment. I'm happy to sit down and talk to him. Okay. I don't know where I am on time. Am I killing you guys? Is it?
We're okay.
Yeah.
Billing and reimbursement concerns for students who obtain care prior to being able to obtain care with new policy information. So again, Aetna covered you all the way through August 14th, 2019. Anything past that would have been United's responsibility. Whether you were able to get your card or not, it's still United's responsibility. When you did get your card, your coverage was effective all the way back until August 15th. Okay, Okay, so if you didn't get your card until September or something, you were still covered in August. Okay, so anything before August 15th should be billed to Aetna. Anything after that is United. Does that help clarify that, or does anybody have anything to add to that bullet point?
So if they don't have, so if they don't have the card, they still access, as you mentioned, even though this was started on August 15th, I mean, I know people who didn't get cards till September, and even one that even said that we didn't really see anything until October. But they can access the student health center, even though there was that delay.
Absolutely. The good thing about coming to the student health center, there's not very many things that we would bill to the student insurance, but we can tell that they're eligible. We can see registration information. So even if you don't have your card, I can look it up, I can see you're eligible, and we can bill your insurance.
I think that was, I mean, from undergraduate students who I saw post things online and things like that, there seemed to be a really large confusion about that. Like people, especially being that there's a very increased reporting of mental health and issues, and so people who were saying that they couldn't get their mental health prescriptions because they were in this limbo period and things like that. So maybe even, I know that one thing that I was also going to ask is I know that a committee used to be formed to kind of talk about these issues, but I don't know, I understand that they weren't really that active last year. And they had representatives both from GPSC and USG that would also kind of be able to communicate some of these decisions and things that were happening as new insurance plans or bids were being put forth. Understanding the complications and things like that, and kind of providing input of what solutions might help students in understanding a very complicated process. Did that meet last year?
Are you talking about what is the name of that organization?
Student Health Advisory Board?
That's it. It's our organization. I couldn't
We,
think of the name of it.
we had it formed and we kept waiting to call it, but we couldn't get our hands on a premium
Gotcha.
to
Okay.
show you. And so we kept waiting, and next thing we know, we're told that we're not gonna get it until after school finishes. And like I said, it ended up going to the board in July. So we never had anything to share with you.
Right. I think there was some of the complications that maybe have occurred, or like frustrations that students feeling, regardless if there's a bid or large adjustments, and I'm sure that would be sitting with United and, you know, for a little bit, I can imagine us going through a full overhaul or switch. That maybe even if that committee were to form to kind of think about channels of communication, because I think that's another thing too, is although I know a lot of emails are being sent, they're being sent at a time where students might be feeling overwhelmed and things like that. So I think having the students in the room and kind of talking about successful strategies of how you can get people to understand this process more, have hands-on solutions that might be helpful, especially for our younger students, for undergraduate students, or even those who are younger and graduate professional students who are, you know, finally getting off the Paris plan and transitioning into this wonderful world of health insurance. But I mean, I do think it'd be good to get that going again and to allow collaborative feedback on solutions.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And to add to that, I'm also willing to come to any meeting that you all might have early in the year, mid-year, late year. We're not trying to be confusing, although I know we come across that way because insurance is confusing. But I'm happy to come and talk to any group and try to provide some clarity, for sure. And I think your idea is an excellent one too, and we can certainly look into getting that going. But don't hesitate to invite me to come and speak at any of your other meetings, because I'll come. Sir.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you so much for coming for our meeting and sharing all of what you did. But also aligned with we are saying is if we can get like any kind of educational workshops, like for people like me who came from like non-insurance context, and then I am in the really, as I said, like very new like context. I have been here for the last 7 years, and until now, I don't know what is going on with the insurance, if I have any problem. What I know is I'm enrolled and the fees are paid, so thanks God, I'm good. But I don't know if this happens, what should I do or not do? So such like workshops would help me and people like me who are like still new to the insurance like narrative and like case. So maybe we can get those workshops like for people like saying like know your insurance benefits or you know your insurance rights. I can assume I would be one of those first people to come and try to learn. So that would even like could be another space to ask more questions, to get more confused, to understand and try to figure it out. And I mean, that really would help. But also, when you mentioned that, thank you for saying for to many people, yeah, please call me. I would assume if I'm calling and one of the students or people who are in your office and they pick the phone and I talked with them and I couldn't get the answer, I would feel frustrated and I wouldn't even call again because I don't know what is next. I mean, it seems, as I said, like overwhelming to me. But then I'm not even like aware I can call you because those people who are like picking up the phones to me are the front lines. I assume as someone who is calling, they know the answers, or even if they don't know, definitely they will. I mean, ask me to call someone else. But it's like the front door for me. If that door is closed, I feel I'm done. So how would we communicate that to people? If that doesn't work here, and as we can see, please call me. I mean, how is that could be more visible to the community, the whole community, rather than a small number of people who are attending the presentation?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Maybe it's my part of talking to my staff and saying, if there's something that you can't answer, please send it to me. But sometimes they think they've answered it, and because I've had an individual experience, because everyone is different, right? And I may have found an avenue to something that we didn't think we had an avenue towards. So you're right. If you call the student health services and they tell you one thing, you think you're done, right?
Yeah.
That's an excellent.
That's almost like.
So I just need to communicate with my staff. If there's something that you're not sure of, you pass that along to
If
me.
you're really having a problem like you were having, I wish you would walk into the health center. Him and I both got our offices where we could see the front desk. And we like always are out there if we don't think we're hearing the right answer, or we don't think they're getting the help they need, or
It's
Tried to
confusing.
do what I was told. They said call Gallagher.
Yes, sir.
Gallagher. Yeah.
Thank you again for making yourselves available, but as Usman said, it's unacceptable that we should have to refer ourselves to the highest level to get the care we're expected to get under our student health insurance plan. So how, instead of making it more known to us that we can call the highest level of this whole process, can the solution be how when the first call make the problem, be solved in a more meaningful manner?
It just depends on what
we
your
shouldn't have to call
problem
you
is.
guys basically.
Yeah. Even if you call me with a problem, I'm not saying that I have the answer for you. Because sometimes there just isn't. Sometimes we just can't help you. Like, for example, if there's something that you want covered by the insurance plan, but it's not covered, you can call me, you can call Dr. Grace, you can call the president. Can't help you.
understand we're not the insurance company. We're a liaison, just trying to help the students of the university get through what's really a tough American insurance system. I mean, one of the reasons we're so happy we have Gallagher is because United can even be more difficult to deal with. I mean, they are kind of a ruthless carrier. And so we hired Gallagher to get that service component, and then we try to do it on top of theirs. So
Just might be that I had similar experience with another student one time 4 years ago that I might have an answer for them, that they're just unaware. And trying to communicate all of those little nuances is very, very difficult. So I get it. There should be an easy answer for you when you call, but there just isn't always. Because we're not the insurance carrier, we can't make the decision.
and we can do insurance 101 for you, give you the basics. But, oh, it's so complicated. I'm telling you, I don't allow my doctors to quote insurance information because they'll get it wrong every time. Every insurance company is different. And, you know, a lot of students they're on their parents' insurance companies. It's just amazing. Every plan has different deductibles, different coverages. It's really complicated.
Even like understanding those basics or the key. Look at those numbers, look here, look there. That can give me like a sense how to even like compare plans. Even like now, if I get a document of 3 plans from 3 like sites or companies or providers, I don't even know. I mean, this simple thing, look here, look there, you can tell what works for you better or not. At least, yeah, but 101 health insurance, I can sign up for that now. Thank you.
Sure.
So I understand that Gallagher is kind of the gopher between SIU and whatever insurance company we're using at the time.
Right.
So why would we not be able to submit our bids ourselves rather than using a third party? And what exactly, I guess, are the benefits that really make it useful for us to use Gallagher?
That's a great question. Do you want to take it or you want me to?
Well, I'll tell my opinion on it. We aren't insurance experts, so we hired somebody that had a lot of insurance expertise, and we saw them come in and deal with these really strong carriers, United, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, these others, and get rates out of them that when we tried to do quotes on our own, weren't even in the ballpark, because Gallagher has like 200 different student health insurance accounts. They have some kind of pool with these various carriers, and so they can really get them to give us the best possible prices. If we hadn't have contracted with Gallagher, whenever we come up against Aetna and they gave us this just unbelievable price for our plan in this new year, if we hadn't contracted with Gallagher, which was capable of going to different carriers, we would have never been able to go out and get a better price. We would have been stuck with the carrier that we contracted with. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is they administer our waiver system. I mean, it takes kind of a powerful website and somebody that's able to monitor the various plans and know that people have what they say they have. And so they monitor that for us. And then the third thing is customer service. We found that their customer service has been better than a lot of the individual carriers. So those are the 3 things we have gotten out of it. We really think they pay for themselves in the savings on premiums.
And I would just add to that, it's staffing. We would have to have 5 to 7 people.
I figured that.
Yeah, and then when you take all those salaries as well, it's well above what we're paying for Gallagher. Absolutely. Thank you for the question. And when you had a question a minute ago.
Yeah, I have a general question, that you might not be able to answer. How long are claims normally an audit for?
I don't know, I would say 90 days is an average, but are you talking with United or Aetna?
United.
I don't know yet, but when you call me with the other issues, ask me that question and I'll ask you. I don't want to give you false information, but I'm thinking 90 days sounds reasonable.
After 90 days, if insurance companies don't pay the claims, they have to start paying for themselves.
Has it been longer than that?
No.
Okay. I've just taken over your whole meeting, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
We're getting shortage of the time.
I would say that we're perhaps getting to the point where most of these things are follow-up that are potentially better addressed in basically a one-on-one type of follow-up, because the amount of detail or the information, like you just said, you don't want to give out wrong information. It's something that having the materials in front of you. And so I think perhaps the best thing to do would be to emphasize those points. Like I think one that was early on was that idea that you can use the student health center without having the student health insurance, and that idea, and anything else you wanted to go back over to emphasize. And then the big aspect for us, which you've been hitting on the whole time, is the idea of when there is an issue, how we can follow up on that, and having that information readily available. That was one of the disconnects for us as an organization. Anytime that we heard of something, or someone contacted us directly, or some of our other organizations that we have to facilitate students on campus, not having a level of understanding of where we were in the process. We know that we have to renew a policy every year, but with the switch to the provider or the carrier, and then knowing specifically who is the best person to contact, who is a specific individual to contact, which obviously have that understanding now. But for anybody that's having a problem, like walking through the most effective approach for them to reconcile those issues that may be coming up.
I just want to emphasize that I might not be able to solve your problem, okay? Because if it's a rule and it's set in stone and that's the way it is, I can get you the right person and find out whether we can help or not.
I was wondering, this handout, so that we can maybe put it on our website or make it more accessible. Is this something that you can send to us, or is it located on your
I
website?
can absolutely send it to you, but all this information is on our website.
Okay.
But
Yeah, if it's a
I'm happy-
handout form, that might
happy
be
to
helpful for us. For anybody who has any future questions, since it kind of covers everything pretty neatly.
Good.
I also would say though, I'd love to see that committee form, just because it sounds like you have 2 periods of time, both in the fall and in the spring, where you have three weeks where people have to actively choose to enroll. And that is both in the fall and the spring, from my understanding, right? So imagine that your offices get lots and lots of calls during those 3 weeks in that transitional period. So hopefully that committee might be able to think about opportunities to make that work of an awareness campaign, helping people hands-on understand the impact of that and what that means, because there seems to be a disconnect there during those 3 weeks. So hopefully we can set a meeting, have USG and other representatives across campus there to brainstorm so that we go into spring very smoothly, because I can see this all happening again.
Yeah.
All
It
happening
happens,
again.
especially with the new students, it does happen, and I'm all for that.
Would you like to be on that for?
I would, yeah. I think someone else is very signed up for it though.
Oh, you.
I mean, like, we do have someone who's ready.
We solicit the graduate and or professional student volunteers to be nominated for the university-wide committees and other things. Yeah, we're the resources to see someone. So for
Our
a few years
director
back,
of
it
wellness
was
is
just
going to
hard.
hold a group together. I just wanted to make sure people that had an active interest would get on.
Sure.
It may also not be a bad idea, because I know that the university requires you to do like sexual harassment training on a yearly basis for students, employees, whoever. It may be a good idea just to have like a module available on D2L to where it has information available about the health and just the whole health services
Excellent
program.
idea. Videos are something that we have not, we do a lot of messaging, but we have not.
That might be a good idea, because honestly, I'm on D2L more than anything else whenever it comes to schoolwork. So that's a good place for people to actually see it, and it's in your face. You have it listed within your class list, all kinds of stuff.
And I also thank you for coming, because I also know, like, I was one of the people who was like, you can bring them in, because I'm very curious about the process. But I just want to echo, I think, what Ben was saying too, is that, like, when I talked to your person, wouldn't have known to call back. Not because, like, I'm not that person. Like, I talked to them, we both seemed to be on the same page. Like, called Gallagher, I was like, okay, check. Like, so I felt like I was I would never have thought to call back, because at that point it felt like I was in the hands of Gallagher. So I think to bring back what Ben was saying, like, if you could just, like, I don't know, build a strategy or kind of talk through with your staff, like, how do we communicate, like, the levels of, because like I said, I would never have known to call back, or I would have, but I really did think I was now in the hands of Gallagher, you know what I mean? So I didn't.
And sometimes it's so hard to differentiate, because sometimes students are just having problems locating the website, and we can tell them and they'll say it's not there.
Yeah, and that
So
wasn't me,
it's
like,
there.
I was I was
Right.
calling, I knew exactly what you'd have done, but I would never have known to call back. So I think just to echo what Ben was saying, is like, is there a way that we can figure out how to communicate with your staff in a way that helps us know, do we need to call up, or are we now having to call somewhere else? So.
It might also be beneficial. I was looking at the student health insurance site. It might even be beneficial to have like something on there to like that teaches students how to navigate around this hall.
So if it goes to the module, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
So I put this handout together. He doesn't know this, but under number 6, that first number is the front desk that you got.
Mhm.
That second number is his direct line.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, at the very least, everyone, I will scan a copy of the handout that they provided for us and send that out in the follow-up from the meeting itself for everyone to take a look at and share with those in your department so you have that electronic copy. And if we get sent the electronic copy, I'll share that as well with Ken. I'll have the active link in it so that you can go direct there. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope that was informative. It seemed like it was. Good. All right, cool. So we are running a little bit behind. I got 8:15 is the time, and so I'm going to make a quick note on where we are on my agenda. So the next item we have on the agenda is anyone that wishes to speak from the floor. Anything someone wants to address as far as any items, any announcements, any statements?
I was looking at it. I know that I've been talking about the trainings from the Office of the Associate Chancellor of University a lot. Well, that's what I do. Also, but this Thursday is our cultural appropriation training workshop. It's at 2 in Student Services Building, room 307. So, you know, it's near the holidays when people kind of sometimes do that stuff. So if you want to know more about it and how to talk to others about it, feel free to come. Love to have you.
You have a flyer for it?
I think we sent it out previously, but I can find it again. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the 3.
Oh, but not that one? Okay, yeah, I'll get it for you.
Just wanted to make sure, for those people who signed up for the university training, do we get any kind of reminder?
You will, yeah. It'll usually come from Remya. Remya is my partner who does this, and she'll usually send it out, so, yep. Thank you.
If there's nothing else from the floor, I'll just move us along to our next item, which sort of also just an open call. Seeing nothing else? All right, the next item is new business. We didn't have anything coming from the fee allocation board for any business. We have no other business that was brought up by a council member. I left it on here for anyone that had business to bring to council itself tonight. If I see that there is none, we'll move forward. Seeing none. All right, we are on to the next item. Officer reports. The order I got here is Lindy for Graduate School Affairs.
Okay, well, I really don't have a lot, so I will also go quickly. So, one, I don't really have anything new from the Graduate Council. I do have an executive council meeting this Thursday, and our next general body is November 7th. So our council members will let you know if we have anything that needs discussing before then. Also, I am the representative from GPSC for the Chancellor's Search Advisory Committee. We met last Thursday. We were basically given a charge, made some decisions about kind of logistics of the process, when our next meetings will be, that type of stuff, to make plans for kind of the upcoming pieces that will be happening. But there'll be more to come, not only from that committee, but also to inform you of after Whit Kiefer, who is the person who came to do kind of like the sessions with the different constituents on campus to see like what they're looking for in a chancellor. Once our representative from Whit Kiefer compiles that data, then there'll be more to share. But I want to make sure that you knew that I attended that meeting on our behalf, and that it was mostly a logistics meeting. Also, I serve as a representative on the Diversity Council. They are planning loosely termed Diversity Week in April 20th to the 24th to 25th. It's probably gonna be renamed, but that's kind of what they're calling it right now. However, one of the ideas that they're having is that on the Wednesday of that week, they're talking about doing a poster session that has maybe anyone's research who relates to diversity, equity, inclusion type work in any way, shape, or form. So however you connect your work to that. And we're thinking about working with the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research. Hopefully maybe they can help us with the posters, etc. But if that's something that's interesting based on like what research you're doing or you think that would apply, let me know, because I'm trying to get an idea of like maybe how many people that would be. Because we think that it'd be a cool thing to happen. Also, it creates the opportunity not only to highlight the work that's being done on campus, but get those people who are doing work like that kind of in the same space, potentially connected, and also being able to talk to other people on campus. So that's something they're trying to do. Also during that week, they're trying to make sure that there's some level of like community RSO fair that also has any organizations or groups that are also again related to inclusion, equity, that type of thing. So if you feel like you have an organization, whether that's in the community or on campus, that you feel like is also related, kind of like connect with me, and we can kind of start again to see about how many people that might be, to see if this is something that could take off for that week in April. We're obviously planning a little ahead since it's October, but we're trying to make sure we're ahead of the game. So I'm putting it out there now to get the feelers to see if this is something that some of our organization would be interested in. But that is all I have, and thank you for your attention. Any questions? Yeah.
A suggestion, I mean, about the diversity things or issues or research or posters.
Yeah.
I was wondering if like folks from the floor are interested in such things, so we can do like even like a short or a small project about our graduate and professional students council efforts in doing diversity within the council. So it could be like a research project, but also we are talking about how we are doing the efforts to diversify and include more people in our efforts. That could be even like the simple things that we are already doing, but also it could be like a good research project to know what we can do better for the future.
I'll make a more solid plan and request in the future.
And all the reasons.
I know, I'm just putting the feelers out there now, and now that I know that you might be interested, I'll make a plan for this.
Was there any sense, and can you share any sense of timeline from the Chancellor?
Yeah, yes-ish. We were given a really loose timeline. I'm trying to remember, I apologize, I think I asked him to email it to you, but they have not yet. The timeline is that as soon as the president is announced, which my understanding is it will be by the end of the semester, then we will kind of like incorporate that person into the process. And we will definitely have everything completed by next semester so that the person would have like a July 1 start date. So, but the process, I think, oh God, I don't want to be wrong. Hold on, give me 1 second. My apologies, because it literally was like a really loose, it's not like dates, it's like, oh, maybe around this month.
And then, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it was, I want to say it was March, when they said. So, yeah, that was basically it. That's all I got. Yep. So that's kind of where we're at with the timeline.
Okay. March is thinking of trying to have finalists.
Yeah, like people to campus, February, March, yeah. Yeah, actually, let me see, because I did type more notes. So let me see if I can find it.
Well, that's all right, and I know the nature of the search advisories.
Yeah, right. We also had to sign a confidentiality thing, so I'm like, well, I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to be saying and not saying. I think timeline's on the list. That's why I was like, yes, time. The fact that the committee is meeting, timeline, and general status. That's what I'm allowed to share. We won't tell. I know. I was literally like, wait,
the video.
Yeah, no,
So I just wanted to run like, so we are talking about mid-spring, pre-spring for on-site
Yes.
visits with finance.
Yes, and hold on, I'm looking for, because I know
We'll
that.
start date for hopefully the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Correct.
Okay.
I know, sorry team, I was like, oh God, don't break the rules on the first question. Okay, hold on, I think I actually have it more specific. I know, okay, so yeah, so October 21st, they're starting to recruit actual candidates, so that's like this week, they're actually starting to like give people in it. January 2nd, they want to start like making sure that we're reviewing materials. Again, I'm allowed to share this stuff. I'm like, okay, this is the timeline. And then January, February, we would set aside like the first round of interviews, which are not the people who come to campus. That's the first round of interviews. And then, yes, and then after that, we would build in the days that they would come. But the idea is that the new person would start as close to July 1st as possible. Found it. Yep. Yeah, sorry. I'm all flustered from not trying to break rules.
Yeah, I got a question if you don't mind. I still remember like getting that email where they were asking like a number of questions. What would you like to see in the coming chancellor? So is that one of the things that's okay to share with us?
Yes, when I get that. So that's what I was talking about when I said we're waiting for that information from the keeper. Yeah, so our representative, whose name I can't remember, Dennis maybe? I don't know. I think it's Dennis, yeah. But he is our representative from Woodkeeper, and he was here for those couple of days and basically met like on the hour with different constituents, and he's compiling that data, and once he compiles that, then we get it back in like a form that says, here's like our call for a position, and that's what we can share with you, yeah. That's a leadership profile, thanks. I know, I'm like, where's the words, right? Yeah, it is jargon. Basically, it's a job call, aka leadership profile, yes. Good job. I say it correctly.
Any additional questions for Lindy? Otherwise,
Oh, I'm still capable.
move on to the next report.
All right, cool. Mine should be really short since the fee allocation board did not meet. I would just let you know what we have remaining in our events funding as well as our CDRAs. And so for events, we've so far paid out $6,825, which means that we have $7,175 remaining within our budget. So if you or your colleagues or someone you know across campus is planning an event or has hosted events in the past, and feel free to have them contact me if they have any questions on how to fill out those forms or what those what that process is like. But there certainly is more money to go around. Also for CDRAs, we do have two that just came in, so I can probably add those numbers. But we have paid out those two added $5,025. And so we have $12,000, and we do the math in my head really quick, $475 remaining. So lots of CDRAs still remaining. That is on our website. Both of those forms are located on our website. I do encourage you that with that, it's unique in comparison to other travel funding that you can get throughout your department or your school or college or the graduate school, and that you can apply for prior to attending a conference, as long as you've registered and made a financial commitment and can demonstrate that through your documentation, then we'll be able to process that for you. So that's what I got. And sorry, I'm kind of running behind there. Otherwise, would have had some other items to bring up, but that's me making it short and sweet.
Just a question about the practices in other departments regarding the travel.
Sure.
Travel. When a grad student presents at a conference and then you're back, you fill in that form and then you submit.
Yes. So for most departments, and I don't know, each department has their own availability of funds, and so it depends per department. But they typically do ask that after you've attended a conference. You can kind of start the paperwork early, but they will need the documents post those dates. So you won't be able to process that or make that request until you've attended and actually can prove that you've attended the conference.
Yeah, because it's a little bit interesting from a department to a department. It's a little bit different. In one of the departments that I'm aware, you need to submit like a request before you go to the conference, like 2-3 weeks before.
Yes, so some also do require a travel request form, and then once that, so that's the preliminary documentation to kind of start the process to see the budgets and whatnot, depending on how they channel their funding or where their funding is being pulled from. So I'll get these, and I should never get these unless it's a copy and a duplicate, because it just slows down the process for you. But there's something like a travel voucher that you get that has the details of that conference. And then typically once it's processed and approved, because that has to go through the department, usually then through your college and your school, and then it has to process through the graduate school, so that they can take that from your budgetary lines. But then the graduate school itself also has its own request form for travel support.
$50. I think I might be wrong, but I contacted them, and then when I asked them about the $50 form, they asked me to submit that through the department.
Yeah, I think it's a matching. So being that I believe it used to be, I don't know how it is technically, so I don't want to be. I don't want to misinform you. It may go because they already have to do the approval. That process may be asked and requested in that process. And so every department's different, but that from what I've seen from the paperwork, it's similar paperwork across the board. But it is post attendance.
It's actually, I forgot to include that in my report, but that is something that I have.
Good stuff. Oh no, not good stuff.
More on that to come. Any other questions?
Now it's your report time. To come, it shall.
All right. Okay, I sent out a report with the meeting reminder. So I'm pretty much going to go from that report with the addition of one item to it. I forgot to put it in there. It relates to the travel vouchers and graduate school funding as a part of your travel vouchers. Can everybody hear me all right? I don't want to like project my voice. Cool. Tired. So as far as system stuff, the Board of Trustees is still going to meet in December. We'll have an update, if not a vote, on the system president search and seeking of someone. It's possible that we'll have an update as far as the Carbondale chancellor search, but it sounds like not really quite yet. We're waiting on that president. Possible vote on the outcome of the internal search for vice chancellor academic affairs or provost, as well as the internal search for a vice chancellor academic affairs and provost of the university. So I did submit our nominations for that search advisory committee that was due last Friday. The applications for that position are advertised, last I checked, to close at the end of this month, October 30th. I did have a meeting with some others on campus about this. And then also there was, this item came up for discussion during the campus conversation that was held October 16th. I did include that link in that report to an article from the Daily Egyptian that wrote up that campus conversation. I also included a letter from the Faculty Association President, David Johnson, that was shared with me for you all to take a look at. The internal search for that provost position, it's currently an interim position, is something that there's been a lot of discussion about. It's something that we haven't had pushed very much in our own council or on our own floor, but it's some things I've been contacted about with some questions or concerns, and as well as in the events of that campus conversation and what came up there. This is definitely something that we can talk about as a part of my report that I included. It is interesting with the timing, as Dave Johnson pointed out in his letter, as was also communicated in the campus conversation, with the multiple searches really that we have going on, as far as the president, as far as a chancellor search.
I'm interested in hearing what the thoughts of the council are on this and what we may do going forward. The last bit of just business for campus fairs, I attached that email about payroll and direct deposit. Now, I'm not 100% this applies exactly the same or at all to graduate assistants. There does appear as though human resources and payroll has changed the process for changing direct deposit information. It requires in-person or electronic for identity confirmation and security. You can see that attached forwarded email that I received. If there's any questions with that, I'm happy to try and help and follow up and get any questions answered. Lan?
Oh, yes, and so, so once again, Clay, when he sent out the notification for this meeting, you will notice attachments in there. One of the attachments is from Dave Johnson. Dave Johnson is the president of the Faculty Association. And so he goes into details some of his, it's a direct letter, I think, to the chancellor, or was it that one, or was it?
This one was addressed to the assistant president, trustees.
Board trustees. So he originally sent a letter to the chancellor himself, but I guess after getting feedback from his own constituent group, which is the faculty of the campus, then sent a letter of concern to the board of trustees as well as the assistant president. I will note that faculty members as well as other constituent groups on campus had discussions, and I won't say I won't name those, but they were considering. And even, I almost feel like naming it because I feel like it's almost public record for some of those meetings. I think COLA is a public meeting. So COLA Council, which is the College of Liberal Arts, had also considered doing a strike against it, not submitting any candidates, so that to force legitimacy of it into question, so that one, it becomes an open search rather than an internal search, so that we have the opportunity for the best candidates. But really a large question came with the timeline of it, as Clay mentioned. So you will notice in Lindy's report, the chancellor does have the power to say, whoever you did pick, if I don't like them, they're out anyways. So even if we did move forward and the person was named in the December meeting, once that chancellor comes in July, they can literally say, I don't like you, I'm going to bring my own person. Then we're going to do this search all over again. So we were saying, well, why not do it the timeline that the chancellor search is doing it, to where you let the president, who has overseeing power, then you have the chancellor come in, and then after the chancellor, or within that same timeline, so the chancellor could be involved in that search, then bring in a search for the academic provost of vice chancellor and provost of academic affairs. So it's not so much saying that because I think there's concern about the current person. That's not my concern on a personal level. I'm concerned about the overall timeline, the logistics of it, and so that it removes any skepticism from the various constituent groups that have questions about it. Because there are many that were in discussions about just simply boycotting it, not sending anyone in the room, and so that's still kind of one of those things that people are like, how much do we want to support this when we know that it's creating tension and skepticism amongst several different bodies on campus? So that's kind of where the conversation is. So to give you that background, if that makes sense. Hopefully, I feel like I'm rambling at this point, so I apologize. I'm also tired. But just to give you, so if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of some of the nuances of that and some of the things that were articulated, you can look at the Dave Johnson letter, because he articulates those concerns very well. And that internal search, so the things I talked about as far as concern, is the power dynamics of that. It was a very short window of time, even though that's plenty of time. Some people will say to bring in strong candidates, but I think literally the call was open on October 5th or October 8th, and it will end on October 30th. So in that window of time, we will have our candidates. And for many of those candidates, if they're doing this interview, if they're saying why they're better than the person who's currently in it, they potentially throw themselves under the bus for the person who's most predicted to get it if we continue the internal search. So there's also complications with what does that mean as far as power dynamics and continued relationships if it's not more open. Just to give you some background. And feel free to pull up that letter if you need. Yes.
The question that I have is what can we do against this rather than just not send them to do
That was my concern, because to me, the boycott isn't necessarily the best strategy, because at least because if they still are gonna move forward with it, then those who are already gonna say yes are in the room, rather than the ones who wanted to kind of create a little bit, or give a little bit more room for other candidates to have opportunities. So that was my thing. I don't know, I think that still having people in the room, but I think that I think their strategy is to delay the process, to ask that a decision not be put to the Board of Trustees in December. Like, that certainly is an opportunity that it's given a little bit more time, so that the incoming chancellor has an opportunity to also be part of the process. But that's just me. I mean, everybody in the room can give input. Everybody in the room can say, you know what, actually, I'm fine with an internal search. And, why wouldn't we have someone in the room? But I think that, I think for Dave Johnson himself and for others, kind of getting a message out to the Board of Trustees that they also have that responsibility. Because when it comes down to it, they're the ones that say yes and no to potential hire. So I think throwing that influence and being, that the next Board of Trustees meeting is going to be right down the hall in the ballrooms on this campus. So we certainly have the opportunity to create a voice of concern, and so hopefully the Board of Trustees themselves will say, you know what, let's look at this process again. The constituent groups on the campus of SIUC aren't really happy with this decision, and so they have power. So that to me is, you have to go above, in my opinion, to those who have the final say decision.
The letter that Dr. Johnson sent us, that you shared with us, is that already sent like in the past, and you're sharing it with us now, or is that to be sent and it's being circulated before?
My understanding is it's already been sent.
Already been sent.
We could easily, we also, what has happened in the past.
The 11th of October.
So if we also, in the past, and this is something that the council can vote on, is if we all felt very strongly against this, we also could write, as a constituent group, a letter of concern.
That's the direction I was thinking.
That's what I was catching. I was catching what you were throwing.
Yeah. So as far as the procedure on this would go, it is the chancellor's office, essentially our interim chancellor's call to conduct the internal search, which is how it was initiated at the beginning of October. So we would need to express sort of our discomfort with that to the office of the chancellor, but we are able to do that. And it would be my suggestion to do that at the same time. Express that to, as Dave Johnson has done, to the system president's office. The board is the element that has to give the approval to execute the hire, more or less only because of the salary being as high as it is and the policy being what it is at the board level, requiring them to give the approval for someone that is being hired at that level of a salary. But otherwise, it's something that would just more or less require the approval of the chief administrative officers of this campus and then also the system, more or less. So that would be the parties that we would communicate whatever that position would be for our council. It would be to communicate it to the office of the chancellor here, as well as the office of the system president, interim president Dorsey. That's not out of order in any way to communicate whatever concerns or whatever position ultimately the council would have.
So are many of your concerns with the internal search the same type of concerns that that Mr. Johnson described in the letter?
So I've actually had a conversation with Dave, I think after this letter had actually been written over to the president's office, and he was part of some of the conversations I've had, and some of them are consistent. A few of the points that he raises, they're valid points, but the big aspect for our perspective, which is really something that is coming from his position as well as the positions that others have as well, is just the mixed messaging it potentially sends to leadership and the direction of the campus. And so there were some interesting things that came out of the campus conversation where we had Trustee Lockett invited the chair of the Board of Trustees, Trustee Gilbert, to that, and he was speaking on that and the role of the board in these kinds of affairs. And he was talking about the idea of, you know, even though it's the chancellor right now is interim chancellor done, it's like he has the ability to fill positions as he sees fit. So it's not necessarily something in the sense of a violation of policy so much that he's doing, that really is what the board is there to do, to make sure the policy is being followed and establish policies in the best interest as they see for the entities. And the idea that it's just like, we're not against the idea of getting rid of some of these interim tags that we have on persons and positions. But for us, it's the idea of, we have a search going on for a chancellor right now. There will be a new leader for this campus coming in. At the same time, we still don't even have a president for the system. And the president coming in is literally being brought in with very specific charges about the leadership and direction of each campus, the entire system. We're talking about these individuals literally being brought in and sought out and given those positions for the leadership roles they will have in determining the trajectory of the university. For a position is vital to that kind of an effort and responsibility and charge as a provost ultimately is on a campus at a university. It's odd, not necessarily problematic, but potentially sending mixed signals to persons that would be offered or interested in both of those positions, a system president as well as a chancellor for the Carbondale University. And that is really where the sort of the pivot point of my specific concerns and the sort of experience and history that I have in the position and GPSC as a whole, as well as just thinking about it, talking about it with peers, you know, colleagues like Dave and folks at the Graduate Assistants United and some of the other conversations that I had. That's really the key point. Like, there's a lot of discussion about a number of different aspects with that search, and a lot of ideas about what that search might entail. But the big one to me, and having gone to all of the board meetings over the last like 3 years, going to a bunch of leadership meetings at this campus, seeing how things at this campus have evolved, and getting the feedback specifically even from persons in the system office, whether those are trustees or whether those persons that are in that seat as president or as vice presidents for system level affairs. That is, we're getting ready to turn a corner of needing to re-envision and re-energize the system with that leadership, which will come down to campus leadership. And it seems
time that you would go from bottom up rather than top down.
Yeah.
And to put it in the most simplest terms, imagine you're someone that is going to be getting offered the position or a finalist for the chancellor that's coming to this campus in March, and someone just 2 months ago was given the position as provost through an internal search. That's I mean, on a university campus, that's your right-hand person for getting stuff done. That seems, we haven't, at the very least, in the most reserved form, we haven't really been given a strong explanation of how any concerns or reservations we might have about that make sense. And that would be the way that I would position in my own sort of thinking, the question about that search being internal and its timing.
Yeah, the articulation also, like the being like that strong communication, like those two entities on this campus work side by side together. And you would hope that that chancellor would have the opportunity to be part of that process, whoever is the incoming person, to make sure that they have that communication, that they are going to be able to steer the direction of the campus in a positive way together. That if, you know, I think that would, I mean, they literally also could come in and say, you know what, I know you just spent all this time and money on this search process. I don't like you, now you're gone. To me, that also, if that is a possibility that sits there, then why not wait? I mean, if that person literally has the power to do that too, then why even go through the process to begin with? I mean, that's what they also said that in the campus conversations. It's like, they don't like him, then they can just kick him out. It's in so many words. I was like, well, You're helping defend my point.
Which,
Like,
which is always true. Even if you go through the laborer's process, doing an external national search, or really global search potentially for someone at any vice chancellor level, let alone a dean or what have you. It's just like you can do that national level search, bring someone in, and then 3 months later, 6 months later, 12 months later, go, you know what, actually this was a terrible decision, and we're removing you from that administrative position. That's always a possibility, which is what Chair Gilbert was trying to express. It's like no matter who you are and how you were hired, it's like an administrative position always serves at the discretion of whatever that
Every role is
administrator was.
temporary.
Yeah.
Which is why for us it's more about the idea of what are we communicating to someone that is the future candidate and the finalist search for the chancellor with this? What are we communicating to someone who's literally their leadership profile is talking about redefining the directions and the vision and the leadership of the campuses to conform to something that is a like system-centric
And then
sort of vision?
hire somebody internal that has all those things, be great.
Well, and it's not even necessarily the idea that it's an internal search, but it's not.
To perpetuate that.
Yeah. And I mean, there's also a bad taste in some of the faculty members' mouths when it comes to internal processes and internal hires. So I'll use Brad Caldwell because he's no longer here. Many say that he was not hired in a proper way, and that was really just a friend giving his friend thousands and thousands of dollars. And I mean, that's certainly come out of people's mouths. And so it had left a lot of distaste for, what seems like someone really just trying to pull in a particular candidate through the process. And I mean, that was something that actually was mumbled by many people. I don't play your behind the camera, but where I was sitting, that was the mumble of people around me. It was like, look at this example, look at this example.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm just saying what others on this campus, what the whispers are, and what the emotions are towards this. And so, to them, it's like, just make it more legitimate, like, move away the suspicions, and you just do these if you alter the process, that's how you do that. Whereas Brad Caldwell, regardless of how successful he could have been or was, that was a cloud over him. That kind of stuck with him in his career during his time here.
Another way to look at it, because it's not just the idea that it's an internal search. It's about the individuals that are making that determination. Right? Going back to the idea that a lot of what has been baked into the search for a president, a lot of what is baked into another search for a chancellor here is the idea that these need to be agents of change, defining a new trajectory within a particular scope of what has been determined is the need of the system and also the need then for the campus. Within that context, you have individuals that are making a decision about how someone in the provost's office here will be confirmed, at least for a time being, at the same time that you're bringing in those individuals that are saying, we need them to make these decisions to do these things. And it's very odd to have those two things going on at the same time. Because, for instance, if a new president that comes in and a new chancellor comes in, nonetheless, like next fall decides to do an internal search for a provost, at least that's consistent with the idea that these are the individuals that we brought in and did these searches for because they're going to make these decisions to get to these visions, like this vision we have for the system, these priorities we have for the system, these goals we have for the campus. Like, at least there's that consistency in the idea that those are the decisions those persons made for the campus that they're going to be leading, for the system that they're going to be leading. Doing the search now, in any way, shape, or form, doesn't have that characteristic. That doesn't, like, I have questions as far as that goes, and a number of other persons have questions that go beyond that, but at least that's sort of there in the core of it each time. It's like, why is it that you're making the decision to do this now? And one of the important things for the other positions we're trying to find persons for is that they'll bear the weight of the responsibility for things like what's executed in those offices in defining a new vision and moving us forward. And so it's just, that aspect hasn't been explained. You're, in my view, sort of taking away the efficacy and the decision-making autonomy of these persons who you're selecting specifically for that, for this position, but not others.
I mean, we just did an internal search for a new interim vice chancellor for research last spring. And any number of other positions. And so why? I don't understand why that's a position that will make them actually remove someone from after an internal search on a non-interim basis versus any of the others where that wouldn't necessarily be the case. That aspect of it hasn't been explained to me.
I can see the glazed over eyes, and I was just curious if anybody has any other points of clarification they'd like on the issue or any other comments from the floor. And also then I was going to ask if anybody would like to suggest any potential actions, or if we just want to move forward and have a representative in the room. And so this is kind of a turn to that. So you've heard a little bit about the background of it. You have access to the letter. Any other comments or suggestions from the floor at this time?
What's the timeline by which we would do something or should do something? My next council meeting, 2 meetings, or within the next week or 2?
Well, the application ends at the end of the month, so that would be too late if we did by the next meeting, essentially.
Nothing that we could do would stop the solicitation of applications and the consideration of the applicant pool by the search advisory committee. I don't think that there's anything that any constituency body on campus could do to stop that, or slow that down, or what have you. I feel like that's something that is pretty much there. It would be a situation where we would be communicating our position to potentially forestall a action following the search advisory committee conducting at least part of its work.
Yeah, because that committee's still forming, and also primarily also be able to communicate to the board of trustees who holds their fall meeting, like I said here, December 8th is a Thursday, and then on 5th, I saw the shapes. So December 5th, so that's really, we would have to get that letter to them, that's the primary goal, but to the committee prior to informing, so they also know the opinions of constituent groups.
Well, can I make a motion that we, actually can't make a motion at this moment. I make a motion that we create a letter expressing our concerns about the internal search of the provost, at least until after we get a chance, non-interim chance.
I second that motion.
So motion seconded. Is there any discussion, question on that motion?
Yeah, so I can see our concerns where they are coming, but also like from my experience of the graduate students council, where the issues happened like last year and the year before when we had the new chancellor, and then I thought at that time, and I still remember I articulated that very clearly at that time, that sometimes we get if the efforts of the council get invested in one issue, but then it doesn't change things. So what would happen, you still remember, I mean, with how many meetings, hours of discussion about the restructuring plan happened, and we even like, I still remember the council reached the point where we had I think what do we call it, century, or what was that?
Century.
Yeah, this century like stage of the chancellor, and I mean, it was like months of efforts, meetings, and then I felt, that's at least my feeling, I kept saying, why we were like investing the time, the effort, just to say, oh, we didn't like it. It's okay. So it's very important to articulate our concerns. But also my concern now is to shift the expression and the letter, and it becomes the meeting focus for like the coming 2 or 3 meetings. So that's really my concern, that the efforts of this council is going to be focusing only on that issue. But I can see why they are trying to do the internal provost search. It's like you bring top 3 new people into a new context, and those people are coming to learn the culture of this school and university. So there is personally could be a connection between the new people and who have a vote or a voice to say and the campus. And that's also like, I can see the provost could be the person who can make the transition smooth for the 2 coming new people to the campus. But having all of those 3 people together new, I think that's at least my opinion, we had enough with the chancellor, the previous chancellor, with very immediate and quick change, and we were not able to catch it up, and now we will have 3 big positions are coming, and they're making a change. So I think that person would, I wouldn't say slow, but it would help make the transition easy. So
I know that was a concern of some of the people coming to this institute, that someone that would be an internal hire would make those transitions a little bit easier.
The thing is, it's just, although you alter that, it doesn't mean that that person still can't get hired. There's still going to be a candidate, and then the best candidate should be selected. And if they truly are the best candidate, they'll be selected. It doesn't alter that at all.
But also coming back to the same idea that we were saying about the power dynamic, and now we have the faculty, they might not be happy, and they were pushed in a different direction. And then we ended up with 3 top new position people in a new campus. So I see that's going to be like a lot to take for next year for this campus, and that's from a student perspective. I need new people with new vision, with new energy, but I need someone who knows the culture of this campus, who has been here like for almost 15 years, who can communicate that with the new top people.
But I appreciate one thing you said there too. If there's already a tension, if the faculty is really unhappy, is that also a good place to begin?
But that's come back to what you mentioned. Even if the new top people come and they say, like, for example, I believe the new provost, I think we don't like you, we will have a new search for next year. But at least that year of transition, make time for the new top people to come to understand the culture. Before it's like 3 top people, they're 100% new.
So I'm going to reiterate, nothing that we've said would eliminate anybody from still applying and still being a candidate for selection, and being suggested or reviewed by the selection committee, and then those candidates being put forward to the board of trustees. We're just saying, open up, let's look at the timeline so the chancellor, so the incoming chancellor has an option and opinion, so they know that they can work in a healthy communication relationship together, right? And that this is just shifting the timeline and potentially even opening it. So that's what we're suggesting. We're not suggesting that someone not be. We're not targeting a person, we're targeting a process.
Just as a student, I think that it'd be incredibly short-sighted to only look internally for representation. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the university is not on solid ground at the moment in numerous aspects, and to limit that to somebody who's been here for 15 years, I think would only hinder the university in almost every aspect. I don't think people who've been here for 15 years necessarily know how to innovate and create the kind of opportunities that students require at this point, and then to not take action as a council, just in terms of like what we're spending our time on. I think the entire reason we're here is to bring those concerns to the administration and issues as important to the university and the whole system as this. This is pretty much the sole reason why we should exist, is to pass this along. So I definitely agree that we should be, formulating our opinions in some sort of letter and expressing that to the administration in that way.
And I was just wanting to see some clarification backing OJ's proposal for the letter. A couple of years ago, when the late Chancellor Carlo Montemagno removed the dean from the dean of the graduate school, there was an emergency meeting. I wasn't on GPSC at the time, but I was Lindy's proxy for that December meeting. And there was two options in that for sending a letter. And one was called the nicer option, and the other one was called the nuclear option. And there was a letter of no confidence, and then a letter, John Flowers was there. Those were his exact words. So there was one that showed a dissent, and then there was one that was what he called nuclear. And I believe one was a vote of no confidence, and one was a letter of censure. Which is which? I need clarification.
A vote of no confidence or communication of the idea of no confidence is pretty much the worst position someone can articulate about the idea that they have fitness to perform the duties that have been assigned to them. You have no confidence in their ability to perform the duties that they are held responsible and accountable for. That's basically what you're saying. A censure says that there is something deeply troubling about the way in which or their ability to perform the duties and responsibilities that have been charged.
Could this letter be a censure of this process? We don't like how you're doing this, there's something wrong.
You would be able to communicate it that way? Yes.
And the letter would not, we would put the letter in front of the council and move on and move forward. And it would be reviewed by the executive board as far as articulation of concerns. And I think Clay has done a wonderful job articulating the basis of what we three up here are concerned about, and that is looking at the process, not the people, but just the process.
The process is my concern, not one particular individual, but how this whole thing has come about.
And most specifically, and this is like on my individual level with the history that I have with things and the conversations that I have, is that the specific aspect is not just the process, but the process in the context of everything that's going on. Because it really isn't about the individuals. It is for some, and I appreciate that, and I acknowledge that, and I understand that. I try to recognize and take that into consideration. It is for some about the idea that it's only an internal search. But like I said, it's like if somebody came in next year, new president, new chancellor, and they wanted to do an internal search, they've been empowered to make those kinds of decisions. It's that aspect of it that gets me. It's like you're bringing in two individuals whose specific charge as a part of it is to engage in leadership to achieve said goals. One of the positions that will be vital to their ability and their approach to executing that will be the person that's in that office. And so the timing of this search, internal or national search, in that context is something that I feel like no one has actually addressed or really given a rationale. And that is a component of most of everyone else that I've talked to's concerns, in addition or without any other conditions attached to what they've expressed as problematic. And that is the part that I get, because what you're going to hear if you complain about the process is exactly what Gilbert sort of communicated in the Cambridge conversation. It's just like, we're following the process. There's nothing that prohibits Chancellor Dunn, even as an interim, from engaging in this process, and the process would go exactly as the way that it is. There's nothing like there, you can't sanction that process. It's being followed. And that's true. And so that's where some of the other issues that others have articulated about their concerns or their problems with the search itself comes into context in the idea that it's just like, it's not about it being an internal search. It's not about it being all these different aspects. It's in the context of the search happening now relative to the others that are going on. That, at least in my understanding of things, becomes the real pivot point. It's inconsistent with some of the other aspects of those searches that are still ongoing and yet to conclude. And those persons have the ability to participate in this kind of a decision.
OJ, one more comment from the floor, and then we do have a motion on the floor with a second. After this comment, we will bring the motion to a vote.
But it's also, I don't think it's fair to whoever is going to get the position of provost either, because if we do have a new president and a new chancellor that are coming in for that leadership and to make that change, if there's someone definitely in that position, they might just fire them just to be like, I'm a leader, I'm coming in, I'm making my own way. Whereas if we have an interim, then they're not gonna just fire the interim, they'll go through that process. So I think it's protecting whoever is in that role along with everyone else.
So the point that I've raised, you're asking someone that would hypothetically come in as a chancellor to expend some of their initial political capital on removing someone that is in a position on a non-interim basis that others on campus might actually like in that position, and you're asking them to expend that political capital. And if I'm somebody that's being considered as a finalist to come in as a chancellor here, that's something I would think about. Anybody that is going to be up for that position is going to be thinking about that in that context. Why would you force someone to have to put that on their plate? Or at the very least, explain to me why that's something we want to put on their plate. And that's the thing that hasn't been explained. And that's what I want to know. Yeah, why is that a part of what you're asking them to consider as they think about wanting to come to the campus? And explain to me why that is something that we should ask them to consider. Because realistically, that would be the case. If they don't want that person in that position, there are persons on this campus that would feel strongly or positively about why I like that person in that position. And they're already having to use political capital to get rid of that individual in that position and conduct research. And it's just like, is that really in the best interest? Walk me through that. All right, so there's a motion on the floor, as I said. Do we want to call that question? Communicated much?
Yes, I would like to, being that there's a second to that motion, I believe we've now given plenty of time for discussion on the floor and for comments, and being that it's 9/11 and we still have committee reports and good in the order, I suggest that we bring that to a vote. So, all in favor?
All right, so for this, I do want to do a straw count on vote. So we'll go to vote. We don't need a second or anything. So all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand so I can get a count here. Thank you. All of those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, I have 14 in favor, plus the additional 2 of officers. It's unclear. I'm voting
I don't know.
for the Constitution, yeah. And 1 opposed. That motion does suffice for our quorum as per our membership record, so the motion will pass. Procedurally, I think the motion is asked to express our concerns. The concerns that we have aren't necessarily determined by the motion that you raised. I would ask the council to entertain that the composition of expressing those concerns be something that is tasked to our executive board. The articulation of those concerns being something that is developed out of an aggregate of suggestions as well as the record of our discussion and the consideration of this motion and the item itself. Translation in real terms of that being anything that you want to have us consider for inclusion as a part of the expression of a statement of concerns about this internal search for a provost, please submit that to me or the GPSC email or come by the office or what have you, and we'll start to incorporate that into the process that will be used by the executive board for authoring that statement. We will bring that statement before the council on November 5th, right? Yes, November 5th. And we'll have the ability to look at that. Any objections to that? Okay.
Thank you all. That was very good discussion, very good procedure in motion. Awesome. I'm happy about that. I know the time is rough, so I'm going to do two things real quick. One, coming back to the thing that I wanted to make sure, and then I forgot. Like I have writing all over it that was like, don't forget, and then I forgot while I was going through things. So the graduate school travel funding, there is a separate application that's on the website for it. However, the travel voucher form that you fill out at your department level after you return, that is not something that actually is supposed to go from your department to your dean, basically, the college level, and then historically was sent over to the graduate school, and if the graduate school had available funds, essentially that $50 matching, that they would add that into the application. You were not able to apply for that separate from the travel voucher that originated in your department historically. Apparently this year, you can actually apply directly to that, or persons have been able to successfully apply directly to that graduate school $50 travel funding support, which is odd because that's not the way that you were able to do it before. Making things even more complicated, when your department is drawing up the travel voucher form and then sending that up to the college dean's office, the college dean's office may not be sending that over to the graduate school for that $50 matching fund from the graduate school to be included on the travel voucher. I don't know the extent to whether that is or is not occurring everywhere. I know that it has occurred on some department travel vouchers for graduate students. So effectively, those students, as a part of the travel voucher drawn up by the departments, are not getting the matching $50 fund from the graduate school. I know that some departments may be unaware of the application that is now on the graduate school website for that $50. There's a new form, apparently, that some folks have not been aware of. And so this is a very odd thing. Any amount of feedback or experience or checking in that folks can do in their own units about whether the department personnel know about the graduate school's application, which looks like it's new sometime in the last literally 4 months or 5 months or less, as well as trying to figure out whether or not when your department does a departmental travel voucher and sends that to the college dean's office, whether that is getting forwarded over to the graduate school for them to add in that matching funds that the graduate school can supply as part of that travel voucher or not. It seems as though that's not happening universally, which means that as part of your departmental travel voucher may not be getting the $50 that the graduate school could include in that funding. Is that clear? I forgot to put that in the report. In an updated one, I'll include that in there with some of the links to what I'm talking about on the graduate school website in that form. But if everyone can go back and check with the persons in your department who process your travel vouchers, or even look at one that you had recently done. So we're talking about this academic year. So since July 1, there may be a situation where it's not getting forwarded forward. The last bit I'll add is the SIU Alumni Association Board of Directors in their meeting this past Friday did approve an award of $5,000 to GPSC to fund our career development reimbursement awards, as it was recommended by the scholarship committee. So we will be receiving $5,000 to help support our efforts to support graduate students in their career development, professional development. It's pretty awesome. I can't thank the Alumni Association enough. And as a side comment to that, they did their grand opening for the Alumni Association Center. It is awesome. I went by there on Saturday night for what I think. Yeah, Saturday. It's really cool. You should check it out. The Alumni Association in particular is trying to do more to actually impact the students that are here now, as well as the university. This is a whole thing. It was pretty cool. I'll do a better job of explaining it perhaps later, or ask someone to come and present it for us. But it was really cool. Go check out the center. It's pretty awesome. But I will conclude my report there. Thank you all. Any questions? All right, so we have a few more aspects of business. Committee reports.
Anything from the intercollegiate?
Athletic Advisory Board?
Our first meeting is not until next week.
Cool. I just figured you were leaving, I just want to check in real quick.
One comment I wrote for myself to remember, we're working to close the communication gap with your committee appointments. So if you haven't heard something yet, we're still working on closing those. Making sure that your committees are getting in touch with you. If you haven't heard anything, feel free to send us an email. But in the next couple of weeks, hopefully everyone's heard back and close this gap.
Parking and Traffic Committee meets for the first time November 5th.
Is David in the room? No? Okay, I know they're gonna be meeting next week for the computer advisory committee.
Anything further? All right, we have good of the order. Any additional comments, questions, concerns, directives, declarations, insults? No. All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and seconded. Quick note before, remember next council meeting November 5th, 7:30. We will have a presentation from the Associate Provost for Academic Affairs. I believe that's right. Yeah.
Academic programs.
Programs, yes. I read that. Yeah, academic programs on first generation students in SLU Carbondale, as well as a little update, I believe, on the Higher Learning Commission assurance. Yep.
Grab pizza on your way out.
All those in favor of adjourning,
Yeah.
say aye. Any opposed, same sign. See none opposed, motion passes. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Good and home safe. Let me turn this video off. Yeah, take it easy.